Jayne Johnson, who's a disability employment advisor at Job Centre Plus. So she's going to tell us about the wide range of support that's available for businesses who are already employing or looking to employ disabled people. So I've got your slides, Jayne, I think, so just let me know what you'd like the next one, and over to you.
Yeah, so first slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so as Paul's just mentioned, I'm Jayne Johnson. I'm a disability employment advisor for the Job Centre. There are disability employment advisors in every job centre throughout the country. So any employers who contact the Job Centre and want to discuss about how they can support their staff within the workplace with health conditions, that's any health conditions, including mental health, you can actually request to speak to one of us, and we would contact you with regards to how you can support. Next slide, please. So Access to Work is a government scheme which is available to employers and employees to help them with keeping them in work if they have a health condition or a disability. So what does it actually do? So if you have an employee who has a health condition and may need support in work, whether that's with equipment or they need a support buddy or a mentor or a job coach, they can apply for work to see if they can have help with that funding. Access to Work will look at whether or not that person qualifies for a grant, and they would also contact you as an employer as well to see if there are any costs that need to be looked at. So Access to Work is a grant that supports people with any health condition or disability, and it can provide practical support and also advice for you as an employer as to how you can look after your employees who have health conditions as well. So it's not just about finding out, giving you equipment, or it's about also assessing that employee in the workplace to see how you can retain that employee in the workplace. So it helps all people with all types of disabilities, including mental health, including and the mental health is free. The mental health support is free. They give what's called a vocational rehabilitation consultant to the employee, and they help that employee with any strategies with their mental health. And that is for absolutely anybody in the workplace. So as long as they are employed, they can contact mental health services through Access to Work. If you have an employee that you are worried that they may go off sick because of their mental health or their health condition or disability, they can contact Access to Work as well. Okay, so a lot of the grants look at support with adjustments in the workplace, and depending on how big your employer is or how big your company is, there may not be any cost to you. So for many employers who employ under 500 people, a lot of the time Access to Work will actually fund the majority of any costs. So it's a really good support for employers, especially small to medium employers. If you were a huge employer like Marks and Spencer's or Tesco's, for example, then the costs would have to be absorbed by the company because that's a huge company. But for small and medium employers, it's a really good support system for you to access. Next slide, please. So the things that Access to Work can look at is specialist equipment or adaptations. So if your employee needs a specific keyboard or mouse or software and things like that, they can assess and look at all of that. It can also help your employee to get to and from work. So if their condition prevents them from being able to access public transport, for example, or they need travel training, if you have any neurodiverse employees, they can also look at a support worker or a job coach in the workplace. They can help fund that. They can also, like I've mentioned before, offer the access to work mental health support service for those who are absent from work or experiencing difficulties with their well-being. And it doesn't have to be work related. It can be any reason for mental health illness, or if somebody's well-being is dipped. It doesn't have to be a work issue. It can be a personal, something that's happened to somebody personally. It can also offer, as an employer, it can offer disability awareness for you and your colleagues, so that your business is more disability confident, and it would actually help stop absenteeism, presentism. It just helps you keep your workforce really engaged and healthy. It can offer support in an interview for the person who's having the interview. So if you are contacted as an employer by Access to Work, or you are going to be interviewing someone who has a health or disability, and they have someone with them from Access to Work, please don't let that put you off. They're there to support the employee, to help them be their best in the interview and to show you what skills that they've got. So it's a valuable resource that the employee or potential employee can use. So we're looking at employers to be more open to having maybe somebody advocate for someone if they are maybe neurodiverse. Okay. Cost of moving equipment. So if your employees have equipment and you're going to move location, even if it's up to a different floor in the same building, Access to Work can help with that cost of moving that specialist equipment. And all employees and employers are, signposted to the gov.uk website. So if you have any queries as an employer, you can contact Access to Work and you can ask them, look, I'm an employer, I employ so many staff, I would like maybe somebody to come and give us some disability or health or mental health awareness, and let us know what support you could offer. And it actually sort of enhances the reputation of the employer if you're willing to do that. Next slide, please. The mental health support service through Access to Work is this almost like this secret thing that no one knows about, and I don't know why. This is available to anybody who is in employment, whether that's self-employment, even if they have got a 0-hour contract, doesn't matter. It is completely confidential, but we would like your employees to let you know that they're accessing this support, because it's actually a really healthy conversation so that you understand that your employee can get this help. So we would actually encourage any employer to let their employees know that this is actually available, especially if you're a small employer and you don't have, HR resources and things like that. This is completely free. So your employee can actually access this support for 6 months. So they can get free mental health support to help them with coping strategies, which will in turn keep them in work, which will stop you having to replace employees, train someone new, have people go off sick. So they are actually given it's delivered by a vocational rehabilitation consultant, and they are experts in supporting people with mental health conditions and helping people with their coping strategies. And it's free. So there's no cost to the employee and no cost to any employer. It's completely free. The employee would actually apply for this help through gov.uk. So this is something that as an employer, you could actually, promote this as a support to help you keep your employees in work. Okay, next slide, please. One of the things that we really want employers to do is we want employers to feel disability confident. because it's not just about your new employees that are going to join you in your business. It's about making sure you're looking after the employees you already have and yourselves as well as employers. So this is a free scheme through gov.uk. It's a scheme run by the government, and what it is about enhancing your knowledge on how you can support your employees and anybody else who uses your business who has a health condition and disability. The majority of people, you know, that we have in the country at some point will have a health condition. Whether that's a mental health condition, it may be a short-term thing, it may be a long-term disability. And the Disability and Confidence Scheme is about having the knowledge to support who you have working for you so that they feel looked after, they feel like they don't need to take time off work. You would understand any adjustments that they may need. You'd understand where you need to go for help. And it's also about valuing who you have as employees. One of the things that it has is it has an enhanced reputation for that employer. There's something that's called the purple pound. And they reckon that that is money that people with health conditions and disabilities have available to spend with businesses. And this Disability Confident, if you join the scheme, it's completely free. There are 3 levels to it. And the first level is where you join and you register, and you're guided through what you would need to understand to be a level 1. The level 2 is the next step up, and if you reach level 2, it's about being able to promote how you are a disability confident employer, and you would be asked to sort of show how you're supporting your employees, to show how disability confident you are. Okay. Level 3 for an employer is where you would then encourage other employers that you have in your network to become disability confident. And a great employer who has this level 3 is, for example, Channel 4. So Channel 4 is a huge employer and is extremely disability confident. And they have, with a lot of their programs they make, they specifically look at the neurodiverse community to employ them within their company, because they offer a different insight and give enrich Channel 4 in ways where typical neurodiverse society doesn't. So they're really a good representative of what disability confident is. We promote a positive outlook on disability and health conditions because, you know, the majority of the UK, the majority of the population, we have 7 million people who at the moment receive some sort of disability support. And they are being sort of like missed with their skills and what they can bring to the workforce. And we want to encourage those people to work for employers who will value what they can do and not look at their health condition as a negative, but actually enhancing that employment. So this is a free scheme. You can sign up either direct through gov.uk, where we have a disability confident team, national team, or if you want to contact us locally, wherever your business is, you can actually contact our job centres. We have employer advisors in every job centre, and their role is to have conversations with any employer with regards to vacancies or training or work placements, and also to discuss disability confident with you to see whether or not it would be something that you would find that it would enhance your business. You would also be able to display the disability confident on your paperwork, your logos, on shop front windows, you'd be able to display that to show that you are an open employer that welcomes everybody. Okay, not just as customers, but also, you know, for your employees as well. Okay, so that's roughly a quick overview of some of the support that we can offer through the Job Centre. We also have partnership managers in the Job Centre as well. So for any employers out there who are considering signing up for Disability Confident, want to discuss access to work more, just want to know how as a business you can expand and grow your diversity in your workforce, please contact either your local job centre or contact a DEA, a Disability Employment Advisor, or ask to contact the partnership team, and they'd be happy to have a good full conversation with you about how we can help you grow your business and diversify with your employees. So that's it. That's
great. Thank you very much indeed, Jayne. Really appreciate that. Some very useful and practical advice for businesses there. If any of Jayne's presentations raised any questions for you, then do drop them into the chat for us, and we'll pick those up. Hopefully Jayne's going to be able to stay on the webinar for us, join us for the question and answer session towards the end of today. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for persevering with the IT issues and getting on there. That's a really useful presentation.
I'm just so glad I didn't drop out in the middle of that.
No, that was really excellent. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
And welcome to our next presenter, next part of our webinar. We're very pleased to welcome Michael Leibe, who's the founder and director of Directed, and an ADHD and executive function coach. He's got a diverse range of clients and businesses, and he's particularly known for his practical and down-to-earth approach. And this is Michael's second appearance on one of our webinars, so we're delighted to welcome him back. Today he's going to talk about ADHD in the workplace. So I've got your slides ready. Michael, let me know when you need the next one, and over to you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me up again. Yeah, I can't praise Warrington Growth Up. When I first started only a couple of years ago, when I thought I'm going to try and do this in my own, you were actually one of the first people I met with, and Rachel was actually one of my first points of contact. So yeah, brilliant. Also, Jayne Johnson is an absolute ball of force. You know, really get in touch with you in the Cheshire area. She's not going to be around in her post for long, so move quick. But yeah, she's a special. She's a rare breed, shall we say? Oh, Jayne. Okay. So yeah, my name's Michael. Basically, I was diagnosed with Asperger's, now classed as level 1 autism, when I was about 12. I was expelled from school, had some misuse issues in that prison till about the age of 23, then got my GCSEs, went to university, and sort of went on from there. The reason why I'm raising that really is because that is some of the consequences that happen if we don't understand behaviours, if we don't understand the drivers of behaviours. And that is pretty much what I'm here to talk to you about today. Okay, so ADHD in the workplace is an oncoming thing. 2 seconds, whereas I'm putting my timer. Sorry. ADHD in workplace is obviously becoming more and more prevalent, etc. And it's more about understanding what we're dealing with, what we're seeing, and how can we support and how can we manage. And it's actually a lot simpler than we are often led to believe. But what we really need to do is we need to understand why are these individuals having these experiences, and that's kind of what I'm here to talk to you about today. Next slide, please, Paul. So the first couple of slides I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about validity. All right, I'm going to dispel a couple of untruths that are floating around at the moment. Okay. So first off, ADHD, it is not the traditional naughty boy in the classroom jumping around, smashing windows, etc. Okay, that is gone. All right, we are a lot more farther down the path of our understanding, and the variations in how ADHD and various other neurodivergences can actually express themselves. So there are 3 ADHD subtypes, and if you continue with your learning journey with ADHD and other disabilities, then you'll probably understand that there are these boxes. However, I'd like to stress, nobody fits perfectly into one of these 3 subtypes. Okay, this is kind of a broad sort of spectrum, and this is a way for clinicians and researchers to understand things that we can't tangibly touch. But in terms of how it presents in humans, it's a much more diverse, much more sort of spectrum-ish, if that's a word. It's much more of a spectrum than we like to than we often led to believe. So yeah, so my first thing would be mindful. Okay, just because an individual comes here, they've got ADHD, and you think that you're Susan, you sit in the corner, you're quiet as anything, you're a bit daydreamy sometimes, but you haven't got ADHD, you don't need the support, etc. Oh, no, okay, we need to be more open-minded. More importantly than ever as well, traditionally, ADHD has been a male condition, okay? Now that is changing with our broadened understanding now, okay? Currently, the ratio of diagnosis sits about 1 to 3 female to male. That is historically influenced, okay? And that will change over time, okay? And I am pretty sure we'll probably see, pretty much 50-50 split. So next slide, please, Paul. Okay, so bit of myth busting. All right, we are constantly told that ADHD, Ritalin, all this sort of stuff got made last week. It didn't, all right? Okay, so in 1937 was when we first started using stimulant medication to moderate behaviour in children in school. I am not saying that as a good thing. I'm pretty sure it's a horrible medication. I wouldn't have wanted it. But unfortunately, we have been treating these kind of behaviours and this subgroup of society who just don't seem to fit in. We've been medicating them since the 1940s. This is not a new thing, okay? Ritalin itself, the big bad Ritalin that we all hear about in the Daily Mail, etc., has been in production since 1954, and its sole use is to moderate behaviour in children or moderate behaviour in adults using stimulants. Okay, so another one. Okay, we hear that Ritalin got invented last week and we just started giving it to kids for jokes and things like that. That's not true. All right, it's been in our society and our medical approaches for a very long time. ADHD has been a recognised condition since 1968, right? This is not a new condition. This has not been developed by cosy, liberals who just don't want to go to work and things like that. Okay, this has been an identified medical condition for nearly 50 years or over 50 years. My maths ain't top. Someone can do the maths. 50 years? Yeah, let's say 50 years. Okay, right, okay. So there we are. Bit of validity for it all there. And finally, fMRI, okay, and the reason why I mention fMRI is because what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about executive function, we're going to talk about neurology. And the reason we're going to talk about this is because this is why we see the differences in behaviours between those who have certain diagnoses and those who don't. There's a lot more than choice and emotion and behaviour going on here, okay? So next slide, please, Paul. Okay, can you go to, sorry, Paul, I did want these shuffled around. It's okay. Can you go to slide 7, please? Okay, brilliant. Sorry, I did want these shuffled around before. Anyway, no problem. So ADHD is effectively, now I know people don't like the term, but clinically it is recognised as a neurological developmental disorder. All right, and I know that's a horrible word, disorder, but unless we acknowledge what ADHD is, we will not take it seriously as a condition in society, and we have to acknowledge it. Okay, so ADHD essentially what it does is it makes our wiring act in very different ways. Our signals shoot off in different ways. Parts of our brain don't always talk to other parts of our brain as effectively as people with ADHD don't. Okay, one of the biggest things I would always want an employer to know, and I would have loved an employer to know, is what is really key is we have 2 big components that create a lot of our sort of behaviors and emotions. Okay, we have a very strong emotional center, right, which kick out very strong signals with ADHD. All right, okay, we are different in that respect, but also as well in the front part of our brain here, the prefrontal cortex is where we sort all our information out, we gauge our responses, we take in all the facts and information of those who are around us. So in work, I'm talking to my boss, I am talking to an employee, I am where I am. Now, unfortunately, what happens is these very strong signals get kicked out, and then our executive function, which I often allude to as sort of a New York traffic officer trying to wave traffic along, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. What happens is he's a bit asleep. So what happens is every now and then, bam, these signals go flying through. How does that manifest? Manifests in outbursts, upset, shame, rejection, things like that. Things that don't always fit in with social norms. And I'm going to say this, and I'd like people to remember this. ADHD is normal behaviours and traits. However, it was behaviours and traits that express themselves outside social norms in terms of frequency and intensity. And that's where we get identified, okay? There are neurological differences that are, but what people see and what people don't understand and why people pick us up and get so annoyed with us is because our responses fall outside social acceptability. And unless we understand the neurology, unless we understand the differences, people go, why? There's no excuse. It's just behavioural. It's emotional. It's not. Okay. It's neurological. Okay. So also as well, just lastly, I'm just getting my phone up. ADHD is also associated, and we have to be mindful as well. And I know we don't like to talk about it sometimes, but there are neurological, physiological differences in things like brain size, development of prefrontal cortex and things like that. We can be behaviourally underdeveloped in younger years, yes. However, that tends to disappear when we reach adulthood. The reason is you can tell the difference between a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. You can tell the difference between a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. Can you tell the difference between a 35-year-old and a 40-year-old? Can you tell the difference between a 45 and a 50-year-old? No, we can't. So behaviours tend to blend in, but there are differences in us and we have to acknowledge them. Anyway, so that's what's happening neurologically. With our wiring, we're a little bit different, but how does that manifest? Next slide. Can we go back to slide 4, please? 5, sorry. Focus, brilliant. Yeah, no, one before, please, Paul. Sorry, thank you very much. So how does this affect us now? In a workplace, you imagine this as an employer. Okay, we have issues with things like working memory because we don't always keep on track on what tasks we're doing. The amount of times I can walk into a room and completely forget why I'm there and think, what am I doing? And have to go back downstairs again. Now that can happen to everyone. For me, it can happen about 5-6 times a day. Okay. It can take me almost an hour to get out of my house because I keep forgetting my keys. And every time I go back in my keys, I leave something else there, come back at the house and have to go back for that. Now, that's hilarious for the first 10 minutes. It's not too funny after an hour. All right. It gets kind of sad. Anyway, so what happens in terms of our working memory? We can become quite forgetful. Now, in a workplace, that can be quite frustrating. OK, but remember, this isn't an individual just being around or being lazy. This is neurological signals misfiring, so we forget things sometimes. Okay, it will happen. Sustained attention. Our attention with ADHD can be impacted because of a small neurotransmitter called dopamine, which is essentially our focus drug. We don't produce it very effectively, and the stuff that we do produce doesn't always work in how it's meant to be. Now, everyone needs dopamine to focus. It is a focus drug. Okay, it's a neurochemical that makes us pay attention, that makes things a priority. Now, if yours isn't working properly, not only will you not pay attention, but you will start prioritizing things that you don't need to prioritize. So that can also include your boss is having a very serious conversation in front of you, kind of giving you a bit of a rollicking for something. And all of a sudden, you're more interested in what's going on out the window. That's not because they're being rude. That's not because they're not interested in what you're saying. It's because their brain goes, what's that stimulation over there? I'll prioritize that. I'll look over there. Now, as a manager, what do? We feel undermined. We feel disrespected. We feel this person doesn't take their job seriously. All I'm asking is no, just be mindful. Neurologically, what's happening? Okay, I am running through these. It's quick. I've got a few slides, but as we said, and as you can see, the distractibility, I've just explained that. Okay, next slide, please, Paul. Paul. Oh, yeah, we're on the next slide. We are, yeah, brilliant. Okay, other ways in which ADHD can manifest, which to be mindful of. Overwhelm, okay? And what happens, because we have problems with our executive function, our executive function does lots of very clever things for us. It quantifies how much stuff we've got to do, prioritizes those things and how we should do them, and it gives us the go to make that first step. Okay, So if you've got employees got 3 tasks, and he's only got 3 tasks, and he's sitting there staring at a wall, or she's sitting there staring at a wall, and you think, what are you doing? Get going, come on, come on, come on. Be mindful. With ADHD, what happens is if you can have 3 things in your head, but because we can't quantify them, it feels like 1,000. And if we feel like we've got too much on the plate, we get a thing called task paralysis, and that just means shut down. What a lazy, uninterested employee over there. They don't care about their job. They're just daydreaming, staring into space. Again, be mindful of the neurology. Be mindful of how we operate internally. Sometimes we are different. Next slide, please. Paul. Okay. Now, this is really important for employers, and this affects so many people with ADHD in the workplace, because this tends to be the reasons why we get in trouble in the workplace. As I said before, we have socially acceptable responses, don't we? Okay, and if we fall outside them, flags up. As human beings, we're herd animals. We're like, whoa, that's different. What's going on over there? That's weird. That's weird, that is. So we identify it. Now, rejection sensitive dysphoria. Okay, if you're a manager and you're having a bit of a problematic conversation with an employee, or things might not be going great, or you're having a bit of a chat. Okay. Be mindful, all right? That individual isn't just being mardy, or might not be accepting the news very well because of choice, okay? Again, think about it. We have very strong emotional kickers, but unfortunately as well, that is often also coupled with very low psychological self-esteem, which comes from a lifetime of having people walking behind us going, come on, what's wrong with you? Slow, you need to speed up, and you're thick, hello. We have that a lot growing up. Okay, it forms our identity, it forms our self-perception, and we're trying to untangle that. But when you couple that with a very strong emotional kicker, what happens if boss comes in and says, well, you're not doing very good at that? All those memories, all those voices, all those criticisms form straight up, and that can act in very unhelpful reactions sometimes. And in a workplace, the problem is it's not acceptable. Okay, we don't do that in the workplace. We don't have it. Emotional dysregulation as well, and this is a key one. All right, we have to understand emotional dysregulation. So as I said before, we have all the neurology, etc. We have our front thinking brain. Now this is where all our logic and our common sense, so to speak, happens. Right? When you become dysregulated, everyone becomes dysregulated at some point in their life. The difference is if we have ADHD, because of our strong emotional clickers, we can become dysregulated a lot easier and a lot more frequently. The most important thing to remember, though, is what happens when we become dysregulated. We stop using that logic part of the brain, shuts down, straight back to the emotional part right there. So even though this individual appears compass mentis in terms of talking and things like that, when we're dysregulated, we don't see things straight, we don't see the facts straight. And unfortunately, what happens is in a work environment, this can be seen as unprofessional, immature, etc. A list of negative connotations. And again, it's not always down to the individual. We do have to be mindful. And I think with that one, what I'd like to say is that with ADHD can never be an excuse, because that way lies madness. We need accountability for our behaviours and actions. Okay, we do. But it should always be a consideration in any decision that is being made, in any sort of follow-up, next step process, etc. We must consider this. We can't ask any more, but it should be the least we're asking for, if that makes sense. Fidgeting as well. This is a big problem in work. If you're sitting next to someone in an office who's fidgeting 24/7, what's going to happen? You're going to get miffed off, aren't you? They're going to do your head in. They will, of course they will. My kid fidgets next to me. I've got ADHD. She does my head in. Okay, so I get it. Why are people fidgeting with ADHD? Fidgeting stimulates dopamine production. Okay, that's why children do it. Kids are like sitting still because they're trying to listen to something. They're fiddling with something. It's their brain stimulating their little dopamine going. Okay, so try to remember that as well for employees. Next slide, please, Paul. Brilliant. Okay, so what I'd like to stress on this bit is accommodations and adjustments and solutions are so simple, so cost effective. I mean, literally, if you just think, right, if we can help, right, individuals reduce those distractions, okay, help with their sustained attention, and ensure that they stay on task with simple things like a whiteboard in front of them, right? It's that simple. Okay, then brilliant. You will probably be able to solve 75% of the challenges that that individual may have in the office, and it will probably cost you what, a tenner for a whiteboard. It does not have to cost a lot. What I wanted to say was, oh, it's gone blank. That's my ADHD working memory. Never mind. Yeah, these are very cost effective. Sorry, that was it. One thing I always say to employers and organisations is when I suggest this, because a lot of things, like we talk about Pomodoro technique, and I say, what about if your employee, instead of working solidly for 8 hours a day, they work for 6 hours a day and sort of had like 2 hours brain breaks in the middle or whatever, you know, just like at 45 minutes, their heads fall off. What? That's not good work. They're not being a good employee. What am I paying them for? My question to them is always this: what is more important to you? Outcome and objective or process? Now, every manager would say, well, you know, I'm outcome and objective. And you think that until you start telling them, well, what about if your employee comes in with headphones? What about if they work from home? What about if they only work, if they have sort of regular breaks, you know, 15 minutes for every 45? Falls off. The reason why the head falls off, because we have a very ingrained ideology of what work is and what work looks like. And it is this change that we are struggling with at the moment in society, in terms of, you know, this is why we have a bit of a cultural conflict at the moment, because there is a very ingrained ideology. Okay, but it's about being open-minded, it's about being flexible, and ask yourself the question: what am I dealing, what am I challenging here? Am I challenging this am I challenging this because it won't achieve the objective? Or am I challenging this because I don't believe this is the right way that things should be done, and this is not how good work is? And yeah, sure. So yeah, next slide, please. So why should employers listen? Sorry, I didn't just have a quick look at my numbers. Where am I? I am over time. I do apologize. So anyway, so this is why employers should listen. Okay, this is the average cost that it costs to remove an employee, gain a new one, train, etc. Average across the UK is £30,000. Averages aren't great, I know they're not, but still, that's a fair whack of money. Okay, £5 would be too much to me. Never mind 30. So you know, it's significant. 59% of workers said they are preferring to work for an employer who offered better well-being and quality of life than salary, and 49% of millennials and Gen Z workers say that they have chosen their career path based on organisations' values and ethics. The reason why I'm saying this is because the change is coming. All right, we just have to accept that. So we've got two choices really, as employers, as businesses, as organisations. We either dig our heels in and just, you know, deal with the consequences, or we adapt, we change, we be more open-minded, we review how we view things in terms of work and how work should be. Next slide, please, Paul. This is my last one. So yeah, there are lots of ways we can address this very cheaply. There are spiky profiles around. One of them is Genius Within. You know that there are various other companies who do them. The return on investment for implementing low-cost adjustments is 757%. And return on investment compared to money lost, was 18% more productive, 16% increased profits, and better job retention, increased confidence. I don't have to explain why those are good things. And next slide, Paul. And these are the guys who are eating this up, and they are not just eating up for a tick box exercise, they are making it work. Okay, we are losing. It is economically bad sense to just have 10%, 15% of the workforce just disappear. What is the sense? It is uneconomical. It is bad business. Okay, now if these guys are doing it to increase their outgoings, increase their revenue, then there's probably something in there, isn't there? There's probably a bit in there to listen to. Okay, yeah, that's it. I'm sorry, a little bit over time, a bit of a machine gun presentation, but it's quite a big topic for 15 minutes. But thank you very much. I hope I didn't speak too fast.
All right, don't worry about time, Mike. We've got plenty of time. I've actually got a couple more slides lined up for you. So if you're happy to,
sure, okay.
Grateful if you don't mind just carrying on a little bit. As I say, plenty of time. Don't feel that you need to rush or anything like that. But if you've got a minute or two just to talk over one more, that'll be great for us.
Okay, well, if we've got a couple of minutes, this is quite nice. All right, this is the scale of the problem we're dealing with here. Okay, now if we have had this this brain drain, so to speak, of just individuals who are excluded from the workforce, are expelled from school. You've got to remember at the moment there is some research coming in saying that 70% of juvenile offenders in the UK are testing positive for ADHD. Half of adult offenders at least are testing positive for ADHD and other neurodivergences. Okay, it's a very negative pathway if it's not an employment pathway. And believe me, I came from a good family. I was nearly sectioned at 13 because of my behaviours, because people didn't understand them. Do you know what I mean? I was in and out of jail till I was 23. Okay, believe me, if we don't understand and encompass this, the consequences can be severe, and they often are. You know, I've just said, look, employable 143 million days of lost productivity across 10 countries. That was in 2008. That's not even including today's statistics and what we now know about diagnosis rates. Okay, that's probably doubled. That is insane. You know, 3.46 billion lost in annual economic output in the US alone, and that was due to people being off sick with poor mental health. A lot of that is just not having been understood in work, not having small accommodations, basically circle being stuffed in a square hole. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't, excuse me, I'm going all bloody Ellesmere Port, do you know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying? Okay. The intervention for risk children and reduction in incarceration. Now, this breaks my heart. This breaks my heart. I work with children and families in my local area, and it is a school to prison pipeline at the moment. You know, and it just takes a little bit of understanding. And more importantly, one of the most damaging things we can do is take kids out of mainstream education. I know it's not important, but from first-hand experience, the amount of maturation and social development that you need in school. You know, some of the people I used to hang around with in the mid-20s, it'd be like talking to a 15-year-old because they spent most of their life in prison. Okay, it's important stuff. We do need to pay attention to it. And yeah, and my heart goes out to any STEM parents at the moment, because it is a tough world out there, and I hope it gets better. I really do, for everyone, because we deserve a lot better, and our kids deserve a lot better. Yeah, okay, well, that is me done now, Paul. Thank you very much for that extra bit of time there. Really appreciate it.